Grace, you are ready. You have 6 dragons under your banner. You must crush this beast at its head and before too many days have flown.
In this video, I'm going to break down the black side of season 2 finale and we'll discuss details like the Watchtower on the Isle of Faces, the 2 types of Velaryon Sigils, Damon's vision, a look at the Trident in front of Harrenhal, and Caraxes' location when Rhaenyra is flying above the Riverlands Army, etc. So stay tuned for that. Greetings Throne Watchers. In my previous video, I discussed the green side of details like an overview of the Trident with Harrenhal in the background, the 3 letters with Tywin Lannister, the sigil of the Triarchy, etc. So let's take a look at the blacks now. Corlys tells Rhaenyra to crush the beast at its head before too many days have flown. He also tries to help Aelin, who finally loses his temper and yells at him before rejecting his help. As for the detail you might have missed, in the shot where they are preparing the Queen Who Never Was to set sail and are hanging the Velaryon shields on the side of the ship, I noticed 2 different types of shields there. The right one had a white border while the left one didn't, and the left one had these, which at first I thought were golden tentacles or something, but later realized these were probably seaweeds, which the one on the right side didn't have. By the way, while studying these images, I felt like I was playing the Find the Differences game here. We finally get to see Jace's fears come true. Ulf makes fun of Jace's hair and basically says we are the same, and only after Jace threatens to have him hanged does he back down. Right before Ulf gets up, you can see the black grapes on the table near his feet. I don't know about you guys, but in my culture, this is considered highly disrespectful. Ulf had been starving in King's Landing just a few days ago, and now here he is disrespecting food like this. Don't you think he's letting it get to his head? Then we see the dragon seats and the blacks having dinner in the dining hall of Dragonstone. You can see 4 tables have been set on the sides of the room. These tables have been loaded with food, with a servant in front of each table ready to serve more food or refill the wine cups at a moment's notice. Ulf even disrespects Rhaenyra by talking over her and asking these servants for more wine and little birds just when Rhaenyra was about to make a toast, not showing any kind of respect for his queen. He is showing the worst part of the low bonds here. Do you remember Tyrion's quote? It's hard to put a leash on a dog once you've put a crown on its head. While technically it's a dragon and not a crown, but I think the same rule applies here as well. I guess this answers the question from my episode 7 breakdown video. Now I think Ulf took Silverwing to King's Landing just to show off to his friends that he has a dragon now. The man was ready to face Vega just to gloat to his friends. Remember what I said about Miss Arya's laughter just before she suggested this idea? Do you think this is what she was aiming for? Anyway, so although it was very subtle, I did notice Jace's smirk when Rhaenyra decided to put the dragon seats in their place by announcing she was sending them to war. They were not there to just have fun. So we get a montage of the 3 dragon seats getting ready for war. There was a huge difference in Ulf's choice of clothes as compared to Hugh and Adam's, where Hugh wore a simple black armor that looked very similar to Jeor Mormont's armor. Adam wore a common knight's armor. How do I know it was a common knight's armor? Because in the Ulf's shot, you can see the exact same armor in the armory right behind the spears and axes. You can tell how humble Hugh and Adam are, whereas Ulf's choice of clothes shows his arrogance. Ulf chose to garb himself in lordly clothing and wore a pin, which is only worn by the family members of House Targaryen. It shows Ulf considers himself as an equal to the other Targaryens now. This has definitely gone to his head. He better hope he never meets Damon. Damon is not Jace. In the shot where Damon is talking to Lord Piper, in the background, you can see the shields of House Blackwood, which I'm not gonna lie, kind of surprised me because we all know what happened when Robb Stark beheaded Lord Karstark. And Lord Karstark was pretty loyal to House Stark and only disobeyed Robb because of his grief and desire for revenge. In House of the Dragon, however, at least on the show, the Riverlords didn't even like Damon. So I kind of expected the Blackwoods to pull the Karstarks and back out or rebel against them. Their Lord Willem Blackwood was pretty loyal to Damon and Damon beheaded him. But then again, none of this happened in the books, so I'm not expecting any follow-up on this. Anyway, behind the Blackwood's shield, you can also see House Mallister's shield and another one that I can't figure out. Probably House Piper, but it looks more like a golden circle on black. I searched a lot but couldn't find any sigil that matches this one. Can you tell which house it is? When Alice Rivers was sitting on Damon's bed, she had been crying. To me, it seemed like she knew that by showing Damon the vision, she was sealing his fate because these visions will change his course of actions and will send him to his doom. She knew how his story will end. I think she became a little attached to Damon as a fellow dreamer, but she still did what was required of her and took Damon to the Weirwood tree. But I'll discuss his visions later. The detail I noticed in this scene was how Damon was not only keeping Dark Sister near an arm's length, as you can see it propped up beside his bed, but he was also keeping 3 extra swords on the table. It just goes to show how much these visions freaked him out and how much he's ready to fight at a moment's notice. When Alice Rivers takes Damon to the heart tree, he sees a man with a stag's head going to the tree and disappearing. On our A Watch Party of Ice and Fire podcast, Solar Grey thought it was one of the green men, whereas I thought it was representing a Vogue because the visions are not 100% accurate. They can be symbolic as well. You can check out our discussion on our podcast. So what are your thoughts on it? Do you think it was showing us a Vogue or one of the green men? Let me know in the comments below. Speaking of green men, it is said that there are still green men living in the Isle of Faces. When Rhaenyra and Adam were flying towards Harrenhal, we also get to see the Isle of Faces to their right. I know I've already pointed out the tower and the castle in my previous videos, but this time I noticed something else. When I zoomed in on the tower to the left, I realized that it's actually a watchtower. There is a round tower, a sentry post, and a dome on top of the tower. Can you see it? It makes sense if you think about it. If the children are trying to keep their existence a secret, they would want to see anyone approaching the isle so they could have enough time to either hide or to scare them away. And the most likely place from where people can approach the Isle of Faces is Harrenhal. It's a huge castle, and if a lot of people were living in it, some were bound to turn their eyes towards God's eye, and that's where the curse comes in. As I've already discussed in my Harrenhal's curse theory video 7 years ago, I think the children put a curse on Harrenhal and probably all around the shore of God's eye to stop people from coming to the Isle of Faces. In that video, I also discussed how the curse went all the way back even before the arrival of the Andals. So I think this theory still applies, especially if they have a watchtower in the direction of Harrenhal. I'll post the link to that video at the end in case you wanna check it out. So I think the children built a watchtower. They built a watchtower in a place from where they can easily keep an eye on Harrenhal and see if anyone tries to approach them. So far, there have only been 2 people who have managed to reach the Isle of Faces, Howland Reed and a certain someone from House of the Dragon. I think both of them were allowed by the children to reach them to serve some specific purpose. Howland Reed's visit to the Isle of Faces played a very important role in Game of Thrones, which I've also discussed 7 years ago in my Howland Reed's role in Jon's birth video. Similarly, a certain someone from House of the Dragon was allowed to reach the Isle of Aces, and I believe whatever they were told had a huge impact on the result of the Dance of the Dragons. I have discussed all of this in my Harrenhal's curse theory video, but be warned, there will be spoilers about House of the Dragon since the video is old and we didn't know there will be a show later on. On the right side of the Isle of Aces, on top of a hill, you can see another tower and what I think is a castle. On top of the castle, you can see a fish or a windsock-like shape. It's too blurry to make out exactly what it is, but I hope we'll get a closer look in the later seasons. What do you think this shape could be? Let me know in the comments below. Moving on, when Damon touches the Weirwood, he sees a series of events in a vision. Let's take a look at what he sees and what it could mean. At first, we see a few Weirwood roots with its sap leaking out of it. As I assume the blood, information, flows through its roots. This scene, along with the vision of the half stag, half human that Damon saw, gave me an idea for another crazy theory. This theory will explain the Weirwood's origin and how its powers work, etc. I'll discuss this theory in my Secret Behind the Weirwood Trees video. Then the blood or the vision shows us the future and leads to the younger version of Brynden Rivers sitting in a tangled nest of woven weirwood throne. For those who doesn't know him, he is the younger version of the three-eyed raven who taught Bran how to use his powers in Game of Thrones, the one Leaf had been helping. By the way, Leaf was around 200 years old during the time of Game of Thrones, which means Leaf was born somewhere around the events of the dance. Anyway, when Bran meets the three-eyed raven in the books, this is what he thinks about him. His body was so skeletal and his clothes so rotted that at first Bran took him for another corpse, a dead man propped up so long that the roots had grown over him, under him and through him. What skin the corpse lord showed was white, save for a bloody blotch that crept up his neck onto his cheek. His white hair was fine and thin as root hair and long enough to brush against the earthen floor. Roots coiled around his legs like woven serpents. One burrowed through his breeches into the desiccated flesh of his thigh to emerge again his shoulder. In Damon's vision, although we see the younger version of him, you can still see the weirwood roots coiled around his legs and coming out of both his shoulders instead of just one. You can also see the red bloody blotch, which according to George R.R. Martin and Dunk has a suggestion of a raven shape. I'll read a few lines from the Mystery Knight. He was older than Dunk remembered him, with a lined hard face, but his skin was still as pale as bone, and his cheek and neck still bore the ugly wine-stained birthmark that some people thought looked like a raven. And I know he is supposed to have only one eye, but David and Dan made him have two eyes in Game of Thrones. So House of the Dragon probably kept the two eyes for consistency, unless they were showing Brynden Rivers before he became the three-eyed raven. What do you think? By the way, I think we'll also get to see Bloodraven in a Night of the Seven Kingdoms series, which will be released next year in 2025. I'll post more videos on that series soon. So I think casting him in both House of the Dragon and A Night of the Seven Kingdoms would be a brilliant move. I really hope they do that. Then we see a three-eyed raven flying away from Bloodraven, probably indicating that he would go on to become the three-eyed raven. The third eye on the raven's forehead is a human eye and its color is gold. What do you think the golden eye means? And through its third eye, Damon sees an army of whites led by a White Walker. We know the visions can show us the past, present or the future, right? And we only saw one White Walker here instead of the usual four that we saw in Game of Thrones, which is what made me think that this could be the Night King a little after he was turned by the Children of the Forest. Remember how I had said in my Game of Thrones season 7 and 8 Q&A and the Night King's magic explained etc. videos that the children had transferred some of their magic into one of the first men with either king's blood in him or a king himself to turn him into the White Walker. I've also discussed how the first White Walker, aka the Night King, probably tried to build his own army by trying to replicate their magic. I think he experimented with other humans to turn them into White Walkers, but only succeeded in turning the dead men into whites. This experiment included the first and last White Walker woman, and I've already explained my theory on why they don't create any more female White Walkers in my Why There Are No Female White Walkers video. Through these trial and error, he found out that he needed people with king's blood to turn them into White Walkers. And as I explained in my Craster's Sons theory video, that's probably how he learned to spare some humans in return for them providing their sons to turn them into White Walkers. And that's why he decided to make a deal with Craster for him to keep providing his sons, so he has no shortage of king's blood. You can check out my full theory video for more detail on this theory. But even though I think Damon saw the White Walkers army being built in the past, he also got the message regarding the upcoming threat that he was building this army to invade Westeros. Anyway, then Damon saw 3 or 4 dragons. 3 of them are on the ground, probably dead or dying. There seemed to be a 4th dragon on a castle wall or a castle in the background. Do you think that's a 4th dragon or just the silhouette of something else? Then we see a head and lots of dead bodies on a battlefield. There is so much blood that puddles of blood have formed on the ground. It's too blurry to make out any sigils, but we do see a few swords and arrows that killed these soldiers. And then Damon steps into a puddle and falls into water, which could be a lake, a river or sea. Well, those of you who know, you know what it is. And it looks like Damon is drowning. This is followed by the red comet that we saw in Game of Thrones Season 1 in 299 AC. Then we see Dany's 3 dragon eggs on Drogo's funeral pyre. Rhaenyra had just sent these eggs with Rhaena and her sons, Viserys and Aegon the Younger, just a few episodes ago. So these eggs will reach Essos and Illyrio Mopatis will acquire them before giving it as a gift when Dany marries Khal Drogo. And then the vision shows Dany with her newly hatched baby dragons, Drogon, Rhaegal and Viserion. And then we see a dragon skull in the throne room, probably indicating the future, where the Targaryen kings started decorating the throne room with dragon skulls after the dragons were gone from this world. And then Damon sees Rhaenyra sitting on the Iron Throne. Then Helena pops up in his vision and says he is just one part of the story and tells him to do his part. And then we see the Weirwood sap covering Damon's hand after the vision is over. Then we see Helena. Aemon tries to persuade her once again to join him into battle. This scene takes place right after Helena has told Damon to do his part in the story. You can literally see her closing her mouth before Aemon arrives. She is even wearing the same dress in which she appeared in Damon's vision. So what is his part? Helena tells Aemon that he was swallowed up in God's eye and was never seen again. And Damon saw himself drowning in water as well. Also, remember what Alice told Damon in his vision? You will die in this place. Even those who haven't read the books can put 2 and 2 together now. Separately, they aren't much, but once you combine these 3 information, first, Damon will fall into water. Second, Aemon will be swallowed up in God's eye and will never be seen again. And third, Damon will die in or near Harrenhal. So you can guess what will happen here. I'll discuss this in more detail, but since this is a no spoiler video, I will not tell you exactly what will happen. I'll discuss this in more details in my House of the Dragon Season 3 predictions video. By the way, I just love how Helena and Alice have just been casually giving away spoilers left and right in this season. Anyway, when Simon hears Damon and Broom's conversation, he sends for Rhaenyra and she immediately flies to Harrenhal. By the way, I loved how Damon's first words upon hearing Broom's suggestions were, "I didn't take you for a turncloak." I was just glad he didn't immediately accept his suggestion, even though he didn't decline it either. I know in the books he was loyal to Rhaenyra, but the writers had a different idea this season. Anyway, then we see an aerial shot when Rhaenyra flies above the Riverlands Army. I noticed a lot of interesting details here. As I discussed in my previous video, the Trident passes in front of Harrenhal. In the maps based on the books, it looks a bit farther, but I can see the show changing it up a little bit and bringing it closer to Harrenhal. In this shot, you can see there is a bridge built above the Trident. Then we also see two sets of stairs leading to Harrenhal. And in case you were wondering where Caraxes has been when Rhaenyra and Caraxes were flying above the armies, as we saw him roaring when he sensed them coming, when I zoomed in, I found Caraxes to the left top corner next to Harrenhal, which means the Weirwood tree and the Godswood is just behind him. In this shot, you can see how large the Riverlands Army is. The tents go all the way to the back, far behind Harrenhal. Once you zoom in on the camp, you can see a couple of round pen for the horses, which I had also discussed in my teaser trailer. Details you might have missed video 8 months ago. There are several larger pavilions spread out in between the shorter tents. My guess is they either belong to a lord or their family or some rich knights. I noticed these types of things more ever since I read A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms series. On the right side of the screen, we also see a large black square which almost looks like a table with smoke rising out of it. I couldn't think of anything other than a grill, so that's my guess. What do you think it is? In a closer shot, when Rhaenyra flies above the Riverlands Army, besides House Mouton, I noticed a new sigil that we haven't seen on the show before. It belongs to House Vance of Wayfarer's Rest. Their sigil is quartered, a black dragon on white on first and fourth, and two golden eyes in a golden ring on black on their second and third. Since we haven't seen it before, I thought I'll point it out. Who knows, we may or may not get to see more of them in the future seasons, but I still love them, including these houses from the books. We also get a closer look at the round pens, the trident, and the stairs behind Rhaenyra and Caraxes when she lands on the steps leading to Harrenhal. You can see the top of the stairs are a bit burnt and broken as well. And while she is moving towards Simon Strong, I noticed a passageway beneath the stairs. In another shot, you can see a pathway leading from the tunnel beneath the stairs. When Rhaenyra enters the Great Hall of Harrenhal, she finds a huge crowd of Riverlands soldiers there. Damon did tell Lord Simon to garrison the castle. Damon bends the knee to Rhaenyra after telling her about his vision, and I was like, finally, Season 1 Damon is back. I wasn't a fan of how they showed Damon in Season 2. Also, I would have preferred if Damon had finished his spiritual journey before Alice showed him the vision. It would have completed his journey and would have made his visions from the past 4 or 5 episodes meaningful before showing him the vision. Now it looks like he only changed his mind because of the vision. Because of the Weirwood vision, all his past visions become pointless because they didn't help him change his mind and support Rhaenyra instead. As for the details in the Great Hall of Harrenhal, there are tents or stalls set up on the side, along with several piles of barrels, firewoods, etc. You can see some of the soldiers carrying sacks around in front of Rhaenyra, while in the background, to her right side, you can see a cart and several chests full of weapons like spears and swords, along with several tables set up for reading or writing letters. And on the top, you can also see a bridge. So I think part of the upper floor collapsed during Aegon's conquest, and they had to make do with putting up a bridge instead of repairing it. To the bottom left corner, you can also see a couple of tables for letters along with firewood in a crate and a cauldron next to a table for cooking. So I'm guessing at least the lords of each houses are staying at Harrenhal while their retinues are camped outside. The meeting hall seemed too crowded to be a strategy meeting. By the way, I was awed by how huge these columns are. Not even the tallest person's head in the Great Hall reaches even the base of the column. And speaking of lords, I noticed another interesting detail on the livery collar of Lord Simon Strong. I noticed a golden hand in the center of the black stone on his livery collar. Can you see it? Do you think it means something, or is it just for decoration? Also, while Damon is cheering for Rhaenyra, you can see Sir Alfred Broom trying to slip away and hide from Rhaenyra. Now that Damon has bent the knee to her, he probably doesn't want to get noticed by either Damon or Rhaenyra at this point. In the next shot, we see Rhaenyra sleeping on the bed of Dragonstone. I noticed an interesting detail here as well. On the top and bottom of the bed, there are two dragons facing each other, and it almost feels like they were about to kiss. It just made me laugh just thinking Damon and Rhaenyra trying to sleep there. Anyway, moving on. Remember how I complained in my previous video that I hated how they were leaving the books and scrolls open everywhere, even when no one was reading them, and that their librarian should get fired for this? Finally, I found the scene where they had closed the books. I guess their librarian doesn't want to get fired. Moving on. Rhaena finds Sheep Stealer. I still don't like how she just left Rhaenyra's kids to go seek a dragon for herself. In my opinion, that was pretty selfish of her, because now Rhaenyra's children, Prince Viserys and Prince Aegon, are alone on their own. I hope she'll be able to catch up to them. What do you think? I'll also post my House of the Dragon Season 3 predictions and a Night of the Seven Kingdoms videos soon. If you like this video, please hit the like button below, share the video and subscribe to my channel. Have a great day. 7 blessings to you.